Why didn't Paul push it? He has no problem with a commanding officer fraternizing and having sex with a subordinate. Why not throw in some gay soldiers? Let's make it a party.
Like some real bears just going out there and just kicking ass and then like making out. I think that would have been awesome.
That would have been awesome.
Remember when we first met John McClane? Argyle picked him up from the plane and took him down the Nakatomi Tower at the Christmas party. And the terrorists were overzealous, but it was sweet when they killed Ellis. And with a little help from Alan, John McClane kicked out.
Welcome back, movie fans, to Shat the Movies, the podcast where we ask, were the movies we loved when we were growing up really that good? Have you caught yourself thinking, why don't they make movies like they used to? Can you still remember spending your Friday night searching for the perfect movie rental at Blockbuster Video? Do you know what Blockbuster Video is? If you answered yes, this is the podcast for you. I'm your host, Gene Lyons. With me is my co-host, Dick Ebert.
Good evening.
And we will take a look back in time and decide if our favorite films still hold up. Each week, the audience selects from 4 movie choices that we break out in the race car VHS tape rewinder and watch the movie that tallied the highest number of votes. At the end of the podcast, Big D and I will provide the audience with the number of wipes each movie would take to get off our respective bums. So find a comfortable spot on the sofa and accompany us for a journey through our vast VHS movie collections. As a reminder, you can download Shat the Movies via iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, Stitcher, or wherever fine podcasts are found. This week, we had a vote on Paul Verhoeven movies. And Big D, why don't you tell us what we had?
So again, this was another fan suggestion. There were some good ones. We had RoboCop from 87, Total Recall, Basic Instinct. But the clear winner with 37% was the 1997 classic Starship Troopers.
I was shocked that the audience chose Starship Troopers out of this lineup. Let's be frank. I mean, like you said, these are all great movies. I love RoboCop, Total Recall, Basic Instinct, and Starship Troopers. And I have a special place in my heart for Starship Troopers. But I didn't know people were such big fans of this movie.
You guys were campaigning for it, so I don't know if that played into it. But of all the 4 movies, this was the one I wanted to do least. I hated this movie. I've seen it once prior to the viewing I did for this podcast, and I have a better appreciation for it, but I would have taken any of them. So it did. It surprised me as well that this was what they chose.
So growing up, I think I first saw this movie, again, the way I saw Blade Runner was it's just been showing at goth clubs for years. They just have it projected onto walls or screens while music is playing. And I think I first saw a few scenes from it there. I kind of stopped on the dance floor to watch this thing and realized I didn't even care about the club anymore. I just wanted to see what the hell this movie was. And then I ended up renting it because I was in love with it. I wanted to see the whole thing. And then since then, I've seen it several times and now own it. So you had a little different experience?
Yeah, I usually we'll see a movie that we loved when we were younger. We go back and watch it, and it's not what we remember. In college, I missed the entire satirical take on the movie. I thought it was just a really bad sci-fi action flick. Maybe it was just being dumb. Maybe it was all the substances I was taking in college that my head wasn't clear. I just always remember this as being a really shitty sci-fi action adventure. And now watching it, I have a much better appreciation for what Paul was actually trying to do.
Yeah, a lot of people call this movie like a B movie or like a low-budget action movie. This thing actually cost $105 million to make. It was, again, directed by Paul Verhoeven, who has done, as we've mentioned, some pretty big movies. And it had some pretty big stars in it. Casper Van Dien, Denise Richards, Dina Meyer, Jake Busey, and Neil Patrick Harris, who's a personal favorite of mine. I follow pretty much everything he does. So it's not a shabby cast by any means. Plus a lot of other guys, you know, who essentially have played kind of trope roles. I know 2 guys from the Highlander series were in it. And of course, as I mentioned before, Jake Busey, who, I mean, that's a guaranteed winner of a movie if you got Jake Busey in it.
And I went back and did some research because I wanted to see if I was the only idiot who didn't get the movie. And I was very happy to see that a majority of the critics, including, I always get his name now, Ebert. Who's the real one? Is it Roger Ebert?
I don't know who you're talking about.
Yeah, that other guy, Roger Ebert, hated it. He tore it apart. He didn't get the tongue-in-cheek component of the film. He thought it was just an action film that was meant for young teenagers and over-the-top violence. He missed the message. So I'm not the only knucklehead. But I was excited to watch it. Is it as perfect as you think? I don't know, but I'm sure we'll figure it out as we go along.
All right, so here's the plot for the listeners. If you haven't seen it, or just don't remember it, in the distant future, the Earth is at war with a race of giant alien insects. Little is known about the bugs, except they are intent on the eradication of all human life. But there was a time before the war. A mobile infantry travels to distant alien planets to take the war to the bugs. They're a ruthless enemy with only one mission, survival of their species, no matter what the cost. So that's the setup. Big D, let's roll the trailer.
In every age, there is a cause worth fighting for. But in the future, the greatest threat to our survival will not be man at all.
Hey, kid, what's going on? It's war! We're going to war!
Now, the youth of tomorrow must travel across the stars to defend our world.
We are a generation commanded by fate to defend humankind.
Everyone fights, no one quits.
We are going in with the first wave. You smash the entire area. You kill anything that has more than 2 legs. You get me? We get you, sir!
But they will face an enemy more devastating than any ever imagined.
Here they come! Bob! Incoming!
Mayday, mayday, this is Roughneck 20.
We're under attack, sir. We need retrieval now.
Someone made a damn mistake.
The bugs laid a trap for us, didn't they?
Prepare for battle and journey to the front lines of the next frontier.
Kill them all!
Starship Troopers.
All right, so it's the 23rd century. Humanity has become a spacefaring civilization. While colonizing new planets, humans have encountered an insectoid species known as arachnids, or bugs, with their home being the distant world Klendathu. The bugs appear to be a little more than savages, unrelenting killing machines, though there are suggestions that they were provoked by the intrusion of humans into their habitats.
So I'm going to ignore my entire first take on the movie because I was way off base. So I'm going to only talk about my experience this time. I love the way that they advance the plot right off the bat with the use of the news stories. It's reminiscent of the newsreels during, the 1940s before films where they would give you news and updates on the war, but it's done in a modern way. And it really takes us into the middle of the movie, but also into the middle of the plot. We see right away the action. We see the bugs, we see the fighting, we see the space battles. We get to see a lot of the world without wasting 45 minutes of exposition. What did you think now, looking back at the aliens? Did they match what you remembered?
Yeah, I can't stress how smart that bug design was in this movie by not trying to exactly replicate something we've seen before or get too fancy with the animation there. They made an effect that really stood the test of time. These are very geometric bugs that aren't a shape that we're used to. And they move really fast, so that makes it really easy to animate them. You don't get a lot of detailed shots of them. I thought it was a really smart move. Kind of speaking to what you were saying about that computer motif, too, with the newsreels. This was 1997, so if you remember, this is kind of a visionary take on the way information is going to be produced. Now, with inbound marketing and concepts like that, we're used to seeing stuff this way. But at the time, this was kind of like a look into the future. What would computers act like in the future? How would we process information? And again, these vignettes are great. They tell us a lot about the universe in a very little time. I think you're absolutely right.
The first time through, I completely, and I'm embarrassed to say it, I missed the satire. And I should have gotten it. I wrote down when I was watching it this time, and it starts off with the bug attack. Even though those things are frightening, they're fast. They could kill you with multiple appendages. It looks like it takes an entire clip or 5 or 6 magazines to take one down if you hit it in the correct spot. But I should have known when they show Rico being injured in battle and he looks at the camera and yells, "Oh, God! Oh, God! Oh, God!" And there's dramatic music swelling. How did I miss it?
Yeah, okay. So there was a book before there was a movie, and the book was very, very right-wing, very strong messages of authoritarianism and sort of, civic duty. And Paul Verhoeven took this and he basically satirized these concepts by taking these news reports and stuff and made them intensely fascist, intensely xenophobic, propagandistic. And so in 97, he actually said that first scene, that advertisement to get soldiers to sign up was actually adapted shot for shot from a scene from Leni Riefenstahl's Triumph of the Will. And other references to Nazis, the Gestapo-like uniforms, the commanding officers, you've got the architecture, the propagandistic dialogue, phrases like violence is the supreme authority coming from teachers. So, I mean, clearly he's kind of flipping this book on its head and also using these very obvious cues to sort of point that out. And as I mentioned, this does come from a book. The book was written in the same format too. So as we praise Verhoeven for starting at the middle and working his way back, that's actually how the book is written too. So just a really good adaptation, while as something that you appreciate, Big D, giving it a twist.
I think he's also making a big point about American society, and that everybody in the U.S. kind of rallies behind the war effort. That it's the drive. Let's go. Yeah. Let's go fight. Let's all do it. And I think he achieves a lot with that message, but he makes a few errors along the way that truly stop it from having an impact that would have had everyone recognize what this film was saying. And I wish he had done that.
So in the Federation, citizenship is a privilege earned by performing such activities as military service, which grants individuals opportunities prohibited to basic civilians. Johnny Rico, his girlfriend Carbon Ibanez, and his best friend Carl Jenkins attend high school in Buenos Aires. Fellow student Isabel Dizzy Flores is in love with Rico, but he does not reciprocate. They all enlist in the federal service after graduation, despite Rico's parents disapproving of military service and wanting him to enroll at Harvard instead. Carmen becomes a spaceship pilot assigned to the battleship Roger Young, while mentally gifted psychic Carl joins military intelligence. Rico enlists in the Mobile Infantry, expecting to be with Carmen, but is surprised to find Dizzy, who deliberately transferred to his squad to be near him.
So maybe I missed it, and I'm going to hope you can explain it to me. There's an overall concept of citizenship and privilege. Can you explain it to me? Because Rico's parents seem to be well off. Money isn't an issue. Nice house. They can offer him an education. Are they citizens?
Yeah, the way I took it was much like if you look at this as kind of a statement on Vietnam or other wars that had, conscription or draft, I think essentially what happened here is there are different paths to citizenship. So military service is just one of them. And I think another way he could have gotten to be a citizen was maybe, through a certain degree of education or a certain degree of public service. So there are different ways there. He specifically wants to go into the federal service because of Carmen, which is a really stupid reason. And again, a lot of people think and I think you can speak to this, but I think a lot of people think that the military is just full of people who had no other choice or people who never graduated college or whatever. And I know personally, my idea, I wanted to go into information security for the Air Force ever since I was a kid. And I knew I could go to college on a scholarship. I knew all of that. But to me, serving was a really important concept. And I found that lots of other kids were like me, who were very much planning on going, through college, getting their degrees, and then enlisting or becoming officers.
Yeah, I went the other way. I had finished college and realized how much of a burden my student loans were going to be. And I'd always been interested with the military. I liked adventure. So I went down to the local Air Force recruiter, was going to enlist, and found out they wouldn't pay for past student debt. I had roughly $60,000 in loans. But they would have paid for my master's. The Army recruiter right down the hall said, hey, we'll help you. So that was how I ended up in the Army. I was older when I joined. I'd already finished college. So it was a different experience for me. But a lot of the kids that I did serve with and a lot of the soldiers I had as I advanced were kids who had no other option. They were there because they wanted school. They wanted college. They wanted a better life. And I think that's where Paul went wrong in the commentary about the war machine, the military factory. It would have been much more effective if Johnny was the poor kid and it was his only option because his parents had no money. And once you're in the service, you're stuck. I think they really missed an opportunity to drive home the fact that usually those in the military aren't there by choice.
It's interesting you mentioned differences in Johnny and different ways he could have been portrayed. Well, so in the book, Johnny's supposed to be Filipino, which kind of makes sense. I mean, his name's Johnny Rico, right? And you've also got Carmen Ibanez, Diz Flor, these are all, either they're not typical white names, I would say. In addition, they're in Buenos Aires. It's very strange that they chose, essentially an all white cast almost to do this movie. I don't know if in 2017, with backlash against whitewashing, like with movies like Ghost in the Shell, if this would fly. But at the same time, Casper Van Dien is quite hunky. Maybe the people could just look the other way.
Yeah, this is a good-looking high school. Everybody is good-looking, but were they 35, 40 years old?
Yeah, I think maybe in the 23rd century, people stay in high school longer because Rico, Diz, Carmen, they all look like they're at least in their 20s. Casper and Dean at this point was almost 30 years old when they shot this movie. So everyone did look, I mean, if you put yourself in the mindset of actual high school kids, you realize that everyone looks pretty old, except for maybe Neil Patrick Harris.
God, I look back at my high school photos, and the girls who I thought were gorgeous, they're not anything special now. So if I went to high school with Denise Richards or some of this cast, I think I wouldn't have been able to pay attention to class very well.
Well, I mean, Rico clearly doesn't pay attention in class at all. I mean, he's drawing stuff. Maybe that's why his grades suck so badly.
I almost thought that he was mentally challenged. He gets a 35 in math. In the future, if you suck at math that bad, what's he going to be, a janitor? And then his close friends, Neil Patrick Harris, Carl, decides to fuck with him constantly. I was wondering if this was going to be Forrest Gump in space, to have a protagonist that really isn't that bright.
Yeah, he might not be that bright, but he's a real charmer. You see that he's kind of the romantic, really the only romantic in the entire movie, but seems to just kind of overlook the fact that Diz is awesome, and I don't know why he's so obsessed with Carmen. They don't really explain that part, other than the fact is it maybe just a challenge?
I don't know, but in all the movies we've done, we've run across some female characters that we've all thought were very intriguing, but this is the first time Diz is the whole package. She's bright, athletic, completely competent in her job, doesn't seem to be damaged. I don't see how the hell he is so infatuated with Carmen when the love of his life is right in front of him. I don't get it. But it's pathetic when he's talking to Carmen and he's begging her to say that I love you, to just say it one more time and try it on for size. Is he also making a commentary here about American high school love as well as the war effort?
I don't know if I'd go that far, but he's definitely, I mean, there's an idealism with Rico, and I think there is actually a bit of character development that a lot of people overlook in the fact that you watch this movie and it's his maturation process. And so he has to start somewhere, and why not have him start at a really, really soft point so that when he becomes battle hardened, you say, wow, what a transformation.
One thing, though, that I think looks fantastic, you touched on the aliens. They went above and beyond. This is 97. So we're going back now 20 years. The special effects in space look great. I was blown away by the Beatles, the dissection in class. They could have just easily filled this shell of a roach with some kind of viscous fluid, some random tubes and some latex pieces, but they went above and beyond. They created an entire set of organs, and it almost made me puke. I gagged watching that dissection.
Oh, yeah, the visuals are great. The sound was great on it. I thought that it was, and again, with each of these teachers, they're really imposing upon you a different part of this philosophy of, Earth at the time, and so of the Federation. And so I thought that was a really great way to keep it entertaining while telling us more about this world. So yeah, again, wonderful job by the movie on that part.
So advanced in the future, we've seen that gender relations have progressed a little further than current modern day. What did you think about that sport?
Future ball? I mean, look, every single movie is just basically they take sports, except for maybe basketball. They take sports and they basically just, futurize it a bit. It looked a lot like arena football to me, which I don't really watch, so it wasn't that great. But how cool would it be to have a beautiful woman, be in love with you, and also be the quarterback who will throw you the ball anytime you want? What more can a guy ask for?
No face guards. I think that's a mistake. And Rico's flip, that is not a legal move. There's no way.
Was it a flip 6 3-hole? Is that right?
6 3-hole. Yes. I don't know, but Des also turned down a contract with Tokyo. So she's doing exactly what Rico's doing. She's chasing the love of her life into the military.
It's a sexual food chain, Big D.
Exactly. Got to feed the beast.
So they get to mobile infantry training, and Career Sergeant Zim, who's actually played by Clancy Brown, who was the big bad in Highlander, he trains the recruits. Rico is later promoted to squad leader after showing initiative and quick thinking during training exercises, and he befriends Ace Levy, played by Jake Busey. He later receives a Dear John letter from Carmen as she desires a career with the fleet and now serves under Rico's high school sports rival, Xander Barkalow. Following a live fire training incident that kills one of Rico's squad and causes another to quit out of guilt, he is demoted and flogged. He resigns and calls his parents to ask if he can return home, but the call is cut off when an asteroid, supposedly launched by the Arachnids, obliterates Buenos Aires, killing his family and millions of others. Rico rescinds his resignation and remains with the infantry as an invasion force is deployed to Klendathu.
So they're training to kill bugs, right?
Right.
Does any of their training actually involve bugs?
No, it doesn't. And I think that this is a statement, though, on if you look at any shift in military strategy, right? You had, for instance, in World War I, right? The people who won World War I were not the people who were best prepared for World War I when it started, in the sense that World War I, people still largely used horses. I think something like 500,000 horses died in World War I, but it was the people who decided on technological advancements, armor, submarines, chemical weapons, automatic weapons. They're the ones who really persevered and eventually were victorious in World War I. World War II came along, and people who had figured out that battleships weren't the ultimate, they're the ones who won, right? They discovered, aerial warfare apparently became like the big thing. Now, currently, it's information warfare, right? So there's always an evolution in what's going on with the military. And so, I think that this is just, again, an illustration of a military that was built for one kind of fighting, and now they have a different threat. And that explains, actually, why they did so poorly against the bugs.
If they were training for American Ninja Warrior or Tough Mudder, I bet they'd be fucking kick ass. They could do an obstacle course with no problem. But fighting a bug or shooting, there's no time that they show them how to shoot the rifle.
Yeah, the rifleman is the backbone of the U.S. Army, right? So our soldiers train in fire teams. It's about accuracy, discipline, conservation of ammunition. The mobile infantry is exactly the opposite. They kind of just spray bullets all over the place. I don't think at any point in this movie, maybe one or two times, you see somebody actually look down the sights of any weapon that actually has a scope or sights on it. This is a fact. This is a real life fact. More ammunition was used in this movie than any movie shot previous.
Shut the fuck! What, like sim rounds, like blanks?
Oh yeah, man, they were blasting their asses off. That was not CGI. They were like shooting things.
But did you also notice that when they were playing laser tag with the simulated rifles, when they were doing the team on team, that they actually sweeped? They would do the exact same motion, like they were sweeping a floor back and forth, but they were shooting lasers.
Yeah, and I think that you see, obviously that makes no sense with the laser, but you see Neil Patrick Harris has that vignette where he's showing how to kill the bugs, and he's like, don't go for the appendages, you got to go for that nerve stem. And but when you see them actually in combat and in training, they're just kind of, they're making this like left to right sweep, obviously pointing sometimes in like up and moving it up and down diagonally as well. I don't know what the hell that was all about.
I like it anytime that's a team sport, that if you do something right in the middle of battle, you can high five and cheer on your team as they're doing during laser tag. You could have somebody get killed in action. 2 minutes later, the gang is together high fiving, hugging. The camaraderie is great between these soldiers. But were they making a comment that it wasn't about keeping the soldiers alive, that they're just a body count?
Oh yeah, if you notice, every teacher in the movie has some sort of scarring, either missing a hand, missing their eyes, missing legs. Like there was a statement there clearly that the older generation, it shows the recklessness of the mobile infantry and the Federation forces, that this has just become a normal thing in life, is that people will lose limbs in their lives, and it's totally accepted.
I like the drill sergeant, Zim. There's no restraint. Within the first 5 minutes, he breaks one of the guys. He breaks Breckenridge's arm. Then he chokes out Diz. Then he throws a knife. Granted, this is Chekhov's knife. We see it come in useful at the end of the movie. but he throws it through Ace's hand, and he explains that he's doing this because if you disable an enemy's hand, they can't, hit the button or use it in battle. Again, thank God the aliens don't have hands.
So I think now that we're talking about basic training, we got to talk about the one thing that everybody remembers from this movie. So you ask anybody about Starship Troopers, and this is what they remember: co-ed showers. There's men and women in showers together. And actually, there was a rumor going around that that the director and cinematographer were actually naked with the actors in the shower scene. Totally true. They shot the scenes nude themselves. It was a dare. And the whole point of this was to show, again, just like the future ball scene, that we've evolved into an equalized society. Women do combat roles, they could do infantry roles, and they can even shower together. You think this would work in the real military?
Unfortunately, it won't. Now, the U.S. military has taken some steps to allow female soldiers into completely every corner of the MOS spectrum, and even to the point now where there's a female Army Ranger who's graduated Ranger School. I served in the U.S. Army in a combat role, so my entire time in the service, I did not serve with a female soldier at any point. And it's not a question of that the guys that they can't get along, because I think men and women are fine, but you run into areas that will blur the line between what's accepted. When you're in the field for a long time, you and your buddy, you have to do what's called a tick check. So you'll be out there, and usually once a day, you have to check for ticks. Now, without a mirror, you can only check the front half of your body. So you would have to drop trow, bend over, and spread your cheeks, and have your buddy check your backside for ticks. If there's female soldiers mixed in the ranks, this could easily get into an area that could be misconstrued or sexual harassment. And I don't know that no matter how far in the future you go, sure, you can shower together, but it does throw a wrinkle into the fabric that I'm not quite sure that we've yet figured out how to work it.
Yeah, I mean, thank God their deployments in this movie only last about an hour. They're right off the planet, so they don't have to really worry about that. But it does kind of, I found it interesting that commanding officers are basically encouraging soldiers to bone. It seemed like a really odd touch, but it made the movie so much more fun. I really liked it.
So yes, I did enjoy the shower scenes. I'm not going to lie. And when I first saw this movie, I loved Denise Richards. Today, I can't get over the fact of how much I dislike her. Did you mind her, or did you want her to get killed?
I mean, I don't have any feelings, positive or negative, toward Denise Richards. I just didn't like Carmen. I thought that she played with Rico a little bit. I thought that she was, they were showing that dichotomy of the Mobile Infantry and the kind of training they were going through, and then you've got the pilots that are like sliding down banisters and giggling, and first one of their seat gets to fly, stuff like that. And she's taking totally unnecessary risks. I mean, she's totally Maverick from Top Gun here, like clearing the dock by only a meter or something like that. I thought that I just didn't like her character at all, and I don't think we were supposed to.
Yeah, but why didn't Paul push it? If he had added in gay soldiers openly serving and in an open relationship, he has no problem with a commanding officer fraternizing and having sex with a subordinate. Why not throw in some gay soldiers? Let's make it a party.
That would have been awesome.
That would have been awesome.
They could they could take a page. But what would happen though is they turn into like Revenge of the Nerds, where you'd be like, oh, thank God, there's a gay character, and then they're like, he's gonna shoot a wobbly rocket, like whoa. But like if they had some like beefy, like some real bears just going out there and just kicking ass and then like making out, I think that would be it'd be a zero white movie for me.
Yeah, make Breckenridge gay and make him also interested in Rico. Let's throw a wrinkle in there. I like it. Let's do a love triangle, and maybe, Rico goes that way too. Who knows?
All right, so enough showering. Let's get to battle. So the first strike on Klendathu is a total disaster. There's hundreds of thousands of casualties. Rico is severely wounded in the leg and mistakenly classified as killed in action, causing Carmen to believe he is dead. Rico, Ace, and Dizzy are reassigned to the Roughnecks, an elite unit commanded by Lieutenant Gene Raychek, Rico's former high school teacher. Rico is promoted to corporal after destroying a tanker bug and impressing Raychek. He also finally reciprocates Dizzy's love for him. The Roughnecks respond to a distress call from Planet P, where they discover an outpost that has been devastated by bugs. The distress call ends up being a trap, and the Arachnids swarm the outpost. Rico, now acting sergeant, euthanizes a mortally wounded Raychek after a buried bug bites off his legs. And after a bug stabs Dizzy in the torso, she dies in Rico's arms. They're rescued by Carmen and Xander. Rico and Carmen reconnect and encounter Carl, now a high-ranking intelligence officer, at Dizzy's funeral. Carl reveals that there is a reason to believe an intelligent brain bug is directing the other bugs and has been learning how to fight against humans. He field promotes Rico to lieutenant and gives him full command of the Roughnecks, ordering the infantry to return to P and capture the brain bug.
Jesus Christ. You said field promotion there. They take field promotion to some like turbo level. Rico starts out, this little 2-paragraph write-up that you have for this plot point. He starts out as a private, and he ends up essentially running the Roughnecks. So I wasn't sure if the timeline was sped up or they just advance incredibly fast. Xander is in high school with our group of cadets. Somehow he is already a trainer for Carmen. How does this happen?
Yeah, I think Xander was in some sort of like a JROTC program, because you notice that when he shows up for the dance, he's already in uniform. So I think that he already, I want to know who invited him to the dance. Like, he's from a different school.
It's a dick move. But Rico, he's been in basic for a few weeks. They haven't even made it all the way out of basic training. But Carmen is already flying a shuttlecraft like she's Luke Skywalker, and she's piloting one of the largest ships in the fleet. Is there some advanced training that we're not aware of?
Yeah, that made no sense at all. I mean, I was surprised that, like, when she was even flying the shuttle at the beginning, you know, considering that she was just a kid out of school. I thought they, you know, I mean, even in Air Force Academy right now, it's a while before they put you up in a T-38.
Yeah, I don't know, but maybe Johnny advanced so fast because he was special. After the battle and the carnage in the first bug encounter, and you see, first of all, we probably see maybe 400 severed limbs in this movie. The entire entryway or the entire corridor within the main craft is covered like a Civil War battlefield, with people legs missing, bleeding out, people screaming. But yet Johnny gets the Star Wars Bacta tank? What's that about?
I mean, I had the same feeling when Diz got killed. Spoiler alert, Diz dies, but they have a full-on funeral for her. And I'm like, wait a minute, you just lost something like 400,000 people. You're having individual funerals right now? Like, right before you go back onto Planet P for combat? Doesn't make any sense.
No, and also when they're surrounding him in the tank, they're smiling, laughing, high-fiving again. It's like the battle didn't happen. And you talk about the casualties. So obviously, the news is used to promote propaganda, to drive a war effort. And the embedded reporter states afterwards that it's 100,000 dead in an hour. And that sounds like a lot. And unless you pay really close attention, like I was talking that I missed the entire satirical component, it goes down an even deeper level. When we're looking at the board and Carmen is trying to see whether or not Rico has died and he shows up KIA, the death count on the board is 10 times what the reporters are reporting. So not only is the reporter promoting the war and being part of the propaganda machine, but he is also and underreporting the deaths.
Yeah, and in addition to that, you know, in the book, the Mobile Infantry is called that because they have these armored suits, right? They have power suits, basically, that they work in, and better weaponry. This is definitely a conscious decision made to make them essentially not much more than modern day grunts. They're outgunned. This is a race that's capable of interplanetary travel. But at the same time doesn't equip its soldiers to really win the fight. Again, it's just showing, like you said, that meat grinder mentality. Finally, I think in Starship Troopers 2 or 3, you finally see where they actually get the suits, and then it kind of makes a little more sense. So even though they're outgunned, even though they don't make the best decisions, I think that Starship Troopers did a great job of mixing the Mobile Infantry's discipline with Hollywood action, right? So the heroes are outgunned, but by sticking together, they stand a chance. The enemy has a reasonable motivation. It's not just some flat, other. And the squad movement and fortifications made a lot more sense than, like, let's say, the Space Marines and Aliens, right? These guys actually had uniforms. They took advantage of cover. They worked in fire teams. So I thought, in a sense, there was a lot of pluses to the way they portrayed the Mobile Infantry. But you found a few plot holes or at least mistakes they made tactically.
Well, no. Yeah, you could talk about maybe the infantry gets their spacing down better. Whoever's in charge of the fleet, they stack the entire armada of ships together really close and then get it into orbit within range of those giant big-ass bug rockets. And it decimates the entire fleet. Not once, but twice. How about we drop you off on the other side of the planet? How about we space the ships out? How about we use some air support? Would that be too much to ask?
One of the things you pointed out in Aliens, Big D, was that the first thing you should do is just a battery, right? So you nail the planet from orbit, and then maybe after that, you are going to do a quick dust off. So you pepper the landing zone, you come in, you drop off, and you get the hell out of there. Why are you hovering? Those ships don't seem to be providing any support. They're just hanging out and getting blasted. It makes no sense. What I did like, though, is that they took the pains to actually make some of the decisions that they made in uniform and equipment make sense, right? So you have, these explosives that are highly effective against the bugs, and later on you see some more weaponry that seems to make a little more sense against the bugs. I want to talk, though, about the way that they modified what they were wearing. So Jake Busey actually was hospitalized during this movie because he had heat exhaustion, and hundreds of other members of the cast had heat exhaustion as well. And that's because they were shooting at like 120 degrees in the actual desert to make these scenes look arid, look like another planet. And so in doing that, people had heat exhaustion and were passing out. So what they did was they did exactly what the actual military would do. They modified what they were wearing to cope with their surroundings. So when you see them with those the short sleeve black shirts, they were actually supposed to be wearing full rubberized suits, but they were like, no, people are passing out. That's not made for this environment. We're gonna be better equipped for our surroundings. And so I thought it was a really cool look when they went with like the short sleeve shirts for an actual reason on their Attack on Planet P.
So I know you're a sci-fi fan. Did you pick up in Firefly that they reused the battle suits?
Yeah, I didn't notice it the first time around, but after kind of reading up on Starship Troopers, I realized that, yeah, actually in one episode of Firefly, they reused those weapons, which I thought was pretty cool. I want to go back and actually watch the episode now.
So we're talking about military capabilities and weapons. The bugs surprise the humans. Okay, we understand that. But I've never once seen the capability of the bugs to launch an asteroid. We have some bugs that'll shoot short distance that could take out a cruiser. Is there a chance that this was a fabricated attack by the humans as a precursor just to launch the war against the bugs?
Oh yeah, I think that's really implied in the movie, where you don't see, there's no bug invasion force. What would be their motivation for launching asteroids out into space, to attack another planet? I think it's more that it's clear that there is a human desire to move into this region of space and to colonize it, perhaps. So they want a Tonkin Bay sort of incident, so that as a precursor. So I could totally see that if they're not actively launching these asteroids, if humans aren't actively pulling these asteroids, that they're just taking advantage of a naturally occurring phenomenon. So Rico's Roughnecks join the mission. The fleet encounters unexpected heavy fire from the bugs, and Carmen's ship, the Roger Young, is destroyed. The escape pod carrying Carmen and Xander crashes into the bug tunnel system near Rico. Unknowingly guided by a psychic suggestion from Carl, Rico takes Ace and Sugar Watkins into the tunnels to rescue both. They find Carmen and Xander surrounded by several types of arachnids, including the brain bug, which had used its proboscis to pierce Xander's skull and eat his brain. Before it can take Carmen's brain, she cuts off the proboscis with the knife Xander gave her. Rico threatens the bugs with a small nuclear bomb, which the brain bug is able to recognize, and it allows them to leave. Arachnids pursue them, and Watkins is mortally wounded, sacrificing himself by detonating the sugar bomb to kill the pursuers while the others escape. After returning to the surface, they find that former Sergeant Zim, who had requested demotion to private so he could serve at the front, has captured the brain bug. Carl congratulates Rico and tells him and Carmen that the humans will soon be victorious now that the military intelligence can study the brain bug, which Carl reveals through a psychic scan is afraid. A propaganda clip is shown starring Carmen, now a captain commanding a battleship, Ace and Rico as model servicemen, encouraging viewers to enlist.
I had no idea until he came on screen. A young Seth Gillian from The Wire, from Walking Dead. I loved it. Real young, wearing some kind of tooth and suspender ensemble at the soldiers' party. Really enjoyed him. But I got to ask you, did the big brain bug, did it look a little suggestive to you?
Yeah, So at first I thought it was just my imagination. I was like, man, it looks a lot like a vagina. But I thought, no, that's just, that's just your brain, like playing with you. Maybe you're up too late. You've been watching this movie too long. Maybe there's too much sex coming out of Denise Richards and Diz. But no, they clearly show you that at the end of the movie, they've got lab researchers who are in the propaganda clip, and they take a probe and they just shove it right in there, and you've got a censored, mark on the screen. I think the movie confirms it's meant to look vaginal. So great job throughout the movie making the bugs icky. This part was super icky.
I'm always trying to be careful because we've had complaints that we will find sexual meaning and undertones in anything. So I try to stay away with it. But the orifice of that bug, the way it was pulsating and how all the other smaller insects would kind of circle around it, I was like, this has got to be a big vagina bug. And I'm glad that you agree. And the fact that also the vagina bug has the ability to get in your head and suck your brains out and know what you're thinking and make you do stupid things. Paul Verhoeven's a genius. He understands the teenage boy.
This is metaphor taken to the nth degree. I loved this cheeseball reunion scene between Rico and Carl. It shows all these transformations they've all gone through and really summarizes. You didn't travel with all these people throughout the storyline, but you can kind of imagine for yourself what each of them went through. You see Carl, played by Neil Patrick Harris. He transforms from this young, bright faced, wunderkind into this intelligence officer with dark and shadowy eyes. He's undergoing this physical change. He gets an air about him that's very authoritative. He's grown into his role. He's willing to sacrifice people's lives to make the important decisions to win the war and to learn more. And then you expect Johnny to be mad when he finds out that his life was put on the line for just to capture this brain bug, and he was led straight into a trap. Like Force Recon. And instead, no, he's not mad about it at all. He's fully embraced his identity as Mobile Infantry. He knows that it is his job to go die. As he says, I'll serve as a lieutenant until they find somebody better or I die. This is macho done right. I like this form of macho.
How long are they going to serve? I know when they sign up for 2 years. If you become a career soldier, what the hell was the point of becoming a citizen? Aren't you giving all that up?
Well, yeah, but you it's just what you are. You're discovering that soldier was there all along. It's not a decision. You don't choose the mobile infantry. The mobile infantry doesn't choose you. No, wait, how does it work?
No, the other way around. You had it right. You got it right the first time.
You don't choose the mobile infantry. The mobile infantry chooses you.
We also do a Westworld podcast. I was shocked to learn that our boy James Marsden was considered for Johnny Rico.
I mean, I think he certainly could have done it, but I think that Casper Van Dien was a perfect choice for this movie only because I can't see anybody else being Johnny Rico, even though he's supposed to be Filipino. Just this idea that he had just the right amount of kind of B-movie, 50s, propaganda reel looks to him that just really made him perfect for the role. I thought that my only complaint about his entire performance was during the funeral when he calls for presenting arms and order arms. It is awful. His command, he cannot call a command.
That's your biggest problem? They're on a military ship getting tattoos, pouring alcohol on them. One of the guys is in suspenders. There's nothing very military about this. But I like to see also the fact that Johnny maybe he found a family with the military, because he got over the loss of his really quickly. After the death of them, we never hear him mention his family again. It's not about vengeance. It's almost as if they never existed.
Yeah, and it's kind of ironic considering, again, that you know, in a 9/11 conspiracy theory sort of way, that maybe Earth let that happen so that they can motivate these people to fight. That'd be a really sad twist.
Yeah, I think the movie takes on even a darker tone when you look at it in a post 9/11 world.
So now is the time in the podcast where we rate Starship Troopers. We, of course, use the Shat meter here at Shat the Movies. It is a scale of 0 wipes to 5 wipes, 0 being perfect and 5 being a mess. So 0 wipes, clean as a co-ed shower. It's scrub-a-dub-dub with a Rico booty slap. And 5 wipes is a gooey poo that leaves your butthole slimy as the brain bug's proboscis hole. So Big D, with that, how would you rate Starship Troopers?
Coming into this, I would have said it's easily a 5 wipe, but I'm going to go 2.5. If they had cut the movie down by about 35 minutes, it was 2 hours and 10 minutes. That's too long. There were redundant scenes of battle that were just increasingly unfunny and just droned on. It drove the same points home. Cut it down, switch Johnny from a rich, well-off kid who doesn't really need to join the military, make him a poor kid, and I think it would have been much more effective.
For me, it's a half a wipe. I almost wanted to say 0 wipes, but you talked me down off that ledge. And I think for me, the difference here is that this movie is insanely fun, and it's a cult classic that's fun. So a lot of times when we respect cult classics like Blade Runner or Eraserhead or Clockwork Orange because we realize what they did to a particular genre, or that they had a moment or an image that really stuck with us as a culture. And there's a cult grows around them, right? Much like Firefly, as you mentioned. I love that this was a cult classic that everybody could enjoy. It was fun. It was funny. It was dazzling and had a simple message. So it's very tough to make a movie that's at the same time satire, sci-fi, action, all rolled into one. And again, and that really stands the test of time in the sense that this movie was made in 97, but the effects look good. It's clever. I think it's just a delicious movie, so I would go with half a wipe. And together that would make 3 wipes split 2 ways. We're looking at 1.5 wipes as an average for this movie. Where does that put that, Big D?
Yeah, that's surprising. It puts it in the 9 hole, which is right behind Shawshank Redemption and Gremlins. Could that be right?
Gremlins wasn't that good, man.
No, I agree. Gremlins wasn't, but we're talking, this is now ahead of movies like Tombstone, Home Alone, Roger's favorite, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, Revenge of the Nerds, Fifth Element, which is terrible, Pretty Woman, Rocky IV. Does it feel right to be in the top 10?
I think it does. I mean, again, we have to get final word from Raj, who could not be with us in this podcast because he's traveling for U.S. Soccer. But pending Raj's vote, which I think will be quite high, this should be our number 9 movie of all time.
Considering that I thought it was going to be a minimum of a 4.5 wiper, I was really surprised.
So yeah, so let us know what you think of that. I don't know if the audience is going to say, hell yes, you guys are right. On Twitter, they seemed overwhelmingly positive on this movie. Did we get it on the money or did we not? You can hit us up on Twitter at ShatTheMovies or email us, host@shatthemovies.com. I'd love to hear what you have to say about this because maybe I'm being crazy here with my half wipe, but I was almost gave it 0 wipes. I love this movie. So next up in our movies, we've got John Carpenter movies. I watched... I was banking on you guys making the right choice, and it looks like we actually have a tie here, Big D.
We've never had this happen before. The total was like 397 votes, and out of the 4 movies, finishing last was They Live, then Escape from New York, and we had a dead tie with The Thing from 82 and Big Trouble in Little China, both with 37.1%. So I think we got to break that tie right here.
I already watched The Thing because I thought it was going to win. And I got to tell you, it's wonderful. At the same time, Big Trouble in Little China is a very good movie, but The Thing is beyond awesome, and Kurt Russell looks so cool in it.
Yeah, I also would have gone with The Thing. It's one of those movies that I saw when I was very young, and it terrified me then, and it terrifies me today. something about being trapped in a remote Arctic environment. It's frightening enough if it was a bear attack, if it was some rogue coworker or scientist. Making it an alien was even worse. You have Kurt Russell. I got to go with The Thing. So it doesn't matter what Roger says. We outvote him. So the next movie will be 1982's The Thing.
All right. So now's the time for shout-outs. Shout-outs are basically your way of showing your support for Shat the Movies. If you'd like to get a shout-out where we read your name on the podcast, just go to shatthemovies.com and scroll down. You'll see a little slide out that says get a shout-out. Put your name in there, and we will read your name right here. This week's shout-outs go out to NB, Odessa, Tev, Dave, a.k.a. Trashy T, Melanie, and Joe. So thank you all for writing in for shout-outs. I look forward to a new batch next week. And that concludes this week's episode of Shat the Movies. Be sure to follow us on social media and share with a friend. We're on Twitter, Snapchat, and Instagram at Shat the Movies. Facebook, search for Shat the Movies Podcasts. Website is shatthemovies.com. Our email is hosts@shatthemovies.com. And we're everywhere fine podcasts can be found, including iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, and YouTube. Be sure to subscribe. And if you stop by iTunes, please be sure to leave a 5-star review. That helps the podcast grow. Also, you can check out our sister podcast, Shat on TV, where we review TV series such as Westworld, Taboo, and we're currently doing American Gods. Coming up this summer, we've got Game of Thrones. You can find all that information on our website, shatontv.com. On behalf of my co-hosts, Roger Roper and Big D, Dick Ebert, I'm Gene Lyons. Be sure to join us next week for our recap of The Thing.
But it was sweet when they killed